The repo man is coming. The repo man is coming. Apparently, the repo man's coming because a massive amount, record-breaking amount of people are not able to make their car payments and are walking from their cars. And I propose a massive, massive contributing factor to this is that the dealers charged huge markups, and now people can't get out of their cars. They can't even roll negative equity into their new cars because the negative equity is so freaking huge that there's almost no way that they can even think about getting out from underneath that nightmare. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about what's going on and some solutions for some folks out there that are going through this, but also sometimes you just got to hit the reset button, and we'll get into that in just a second. All right, let me show you what's going on because it is interesting no matter how you cut it. If I go back 3 years on 90 days delinquency rates, so on auto loans, ending in Q4 of 2024, this is the graph. Now, I did not need to go to college to be able to learn how to read a graph and know that this is not good. This was 3 years ago. This is today. But if we go back 5 years ago, you can see pre-COVID that we were up there in delinquency rates. This is 90-day delinquency rates. The problem is what you'll find is as you see these graphs going up, 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 and you see a perpetual trajectory, nothing going down, even a slight level off, and then it continues to go up, 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 and the arrow is pointing up. It's not leveling off. That what we are looking at here is the result of 60-day delinquencies. So let's look at what the future looks like, considering this was end of Q4 2024. Well, now if we come in and use a little AI search capability built into Google, we can find that Q1 2025, the 60-day past due delinquencies are through the moon. So we're talking 6.56. So if we go back here at 4.83 and we look at the 60-day first quarter of 2025 hit a record high, meaning records since the beginning Fitch started rating these things and collecting data in 1994. So let's just say the worst since 1994. I would bet that in 1990, 91, 92, when the recession kicked in about 92 era, that maybe they were a little bit higher. Who knows? But we're just going back to 1994. Since then, they've not seen delinquency rates that high. But remember, this is 60 days. This is 90 days. So let's just say you're a betting man. Would you bet that if you got 60 days behind at 6.56, that this number on the 90 days is likely going to go up as these people miss their third car payment and hit 90 days? I think we can all say yes in this little classroom together that this tells us what this graph is going to look like shortly in the future. And that is not going to be good for used car inventory levels because banks are going to start repoing these cars, and these cars are going to find their ways to lots, which is why I have zero concern about the tariffs. We can argue that political battle all you want, but I'm just saying if you want a car, there is going to be plenty, lots of Dodge Challengers, lots of Dodge Chargers, lots of Hemi cars that are finding their way back to the market, as well as Hondas, Toyotas, and everything under the sun. Hyundai, Mercedes, all these folks that bought these cars, and I propose, with enormous markups, have now found themselves in a situation that the reason why they are getting behind now is, one, the payment is stout and it's long-term. Even though the interest rates were lower, they took long-term loans, which means they're paying so much less down on their cars, meaning that not only are they double whammied with the markups and add-ons that they put into those loans, but also now that they've paid so little down on those loans for the last 3 years, and they have, let's say, 96-month loans, 72, 84-month loans, even at low interest rates, they were paying so little towards principal that they're sitting on still, 90% of what they originally borrowed, which now leaves their car at 50% or 60% at best of what it's actually worth, or what they actually owe on the car, leaving them in a situation of, what do I do? Do I sit in this loan for another 3 years or 4 years, or do I just walk from this thing and walk from this $1,000 plus car payment? Because we can easily Google and find out that the car payments have reached an all-time high as well. Check this out. So here you go. AI is giving us a little help here. According to Edmunds and News Nation, yes, the average car payments are higher than ever for many consumers, and they get into the reason why. High vehicle prices, high interest rates, longer-term loans, trade-in challenges, which is exactly the same things that's leading to the repos. These folks are sitting in these cars. They're upside down. They can't trade them in. They can't get out of them. If they do trade them in, if you're sitting on a 3% interest rate on a, let's say, a Dodge Challenger Scat Pack that you bought in 2022, for example, or even 2020, let's say 2022, while rates were really, really low, now you're looking at, you want to trade that in on something much cheaper. That rate's going to be 9%, 10%, 12%, 13% on less money, meaning your car payment's going to be even higher. And if you roll negative in, you're screwed. So now people are stuck up against a wall that they can't even trade in their cars without ending up with a higher interest rate and, frankly, a higher payment on less of a car. So now what do? Well, that's what's happening. They're walking from their loans. Vantage score, which, by the way, I hate. Anyways, Vantage score, late payments rise on auto loans, average Vantage score. So now credit scores are declining, and that doesn't help in a high interest rate market, because now a high interest rate for a great credit person would be, let's say, 6, 7, 8%. So somebody with a lower FICO score is going to be pushed into the teens. That's going to screw it up even more. So again, they can't get out. If they're behind on their car payments, they can't get a new loan unless they want to pay a massive interest rate and a massive amount of money down and a massive hit by a subprime lender and have to have a co-signer to get in. So that's a tough spot to be in, which leads us to car repossessions return to Great Recession levels as 1.7 million vehicles are taken back. So here's the deal. The proof is in the pudding. This is happening right now. This article was published March 27th, 2025. So that's what's happening. We are seeing repos happen like crazy. But I would venture to say that the voluntary repos, okay, I'm behind, where do I take my car, are significantly higher as well. But I don't have that data because people are just saying, I'm done. I got screwed over by the dealership. I got screwed over by the bank, meaning the bank allowed them. Now, here's the deal. Somebody's going to say in the comments, I blame them for being stupid. I'm kind of with you. Like, people should have known better. But financial literacy is not something that is, been running rampant with younger folks in this last 5 years. It's been kind of crazy. So people are going out with that instant gratification need to buy that Hellcat or buy that Scat Pack or buy whatever it is. And when rates are really low and their income was really high, then they were feeling really confident about being able to sustain a long-term car payment and end up in this thing and paying markups. They weren't watching my channel. They weren't watching the YouTube channels that were screaming from the mountaintops, never pay markups, don't put yourself in that position, because they had to have that car. And they got a low interest rate, so the payment was lower, even though the dealers were able to scoop them for all kinds of crap like markups, $450 for nitrogen fill in their tires, and $400 locking lug nuts, and BS like that. So that takes us to, where are we now? Well, here's where we're at now. You're looking at the tariffs ain't going to matter because there's going to be so many used cars on the market. And while you can go follow Car Dealership Guy, great Instagram account where he talks in real time about what's happening in the market. And I can tell you, sometimes it's just he's dead on, and sometimes he's a little optimistic, but for the most part, he's very realistic. And I'm watching his posts, and I got to tell you, when he does a little temperature check on, dealers, how are you guys doing? Well, there's some stress out there. And part of it is going to be, and I'm going to go ahead and let them know where this is headed to, is there's going to be a lot more used cars coming to the market. And there will be a glut of those used cars coming to the market. Used cars with low miles and still warranties on them from these people who are repoing those cars. And that means that the tariff issues aren't going to be as big of a deal because, frankly, buying a new car isn't going to make sense anymore like it has in the past when rates are really low. Now, even with used car interest rates which are a little bit higher, you're looking at having to get new car insurance on a new car, and you can get used cars, slightly used cars, with a lower insurance cost because of the lower MSRP and lowest overall cost to purchase the car, value of the car. And the interest rates are still not the greatest, but if you can get the car for a cheaper price because depreciation levels are high, because repos are high, because delinquencies are high, then you're going to get a much better deal on a used car than a new car, and it's still going to be under warranty. So why wouldn't people just buy those? So I'm not worried too much about the tariffs, but I can tell you for a lot of you folks out there that are sitting in this position, and frankly, a lot of you that message me and email me, and some of the messages break my heart. And just so you all know, some of you heartless souls out there that comment and say, well, they did it to themselves. I never write back, you did this to yourself. I try to provide some guidance and direction on how they can get out of their situation. But in more cases than not, I've had to tell people, you don't have an out. You don't have an out. You've either got to go out and increase your income, increase the revenue coming into your household, or figure out how to walk from this car. And that means you're going to have to fight with that bank on a negative balance. Once that car sells, they'll start sending you a bill for whatever the negative balance was. And you need to make a decision on if you want to make payment arrangements with them and figure out how to settle that amount out, which you can. In many cases, you will be able to over time, but they will harangue and harass you like crazy. But if the rest of your world is completely screwed up and you just end up making a big mistake and you're a fairly young person and the debt is massive, it may be time to hit that reset button. And I rarely tell people they should go and bankrupt themselves. But I'll tell you, the manipulation that took place this last 5 years has been so rampant by the car dealers that it's reminiscent of, and I'm willing to admit this, being a guy with lots of history in real estate, that the lenders were giving money to everybody in 2000, let's say 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5, and 6. Anybody can get a loan. And that kind of was happening back this last, 3, 4, let's say 5 years since COVID. And we learned our lesson in the real estate world. The repos brought our entire economy to their knees. But I don't think that the auto industry has the ability to bring us to our knees, but it can definitely put us in a lot of pain because for the most part, cars have been a luxury, especially the expensive cars, the fun cars have been a luxury. So once people realize that I got to get out of this, hit the reset button, start all over, go get myself a Honda Civic instead of a Dodge Challenger Scat Pack to flex in front of my friends, then I got to think we're going to find our way back. But in the meantime, the customer's going to win on used cars. That's what's going to happen. Maybe not on our trade-ins, but on buying a used car, you should be able to get a good deal if this trajectory continues. And I'll tell you, the banks aren't stupid. They also do, I believe, this is just what I believe, could be completely wrong, but just like the banks did in real estate, when all those houses were going into foreclosure, they did not put them all on the market at the same time. We had thousands, if not tens of thousands of houses sitting empty, not going on the market, with a lot of people in the real estate business saying, when are these coming for sale? Because they weren't going to add to the problem by flooding the market with inventory. So I would say that it may take longer to repo a car than it has in the past because the banks don't need these things back, because when they repo cars and then auction those cars off, it kills values even more. And when the numbers and percentages of repos go up, that happens on a large scale level, which depreciates the value of their entire loan inventory. So all of their loans that are on those cars, their security on those loans is going down while they're repoing these things. So the self-masochism ends up reaching a place of these banks now now getting more repos because people can't get out from underneath their cars. I'll end with this. I shared with you a few videos ago, 10 videos ago, that the Dodge Daytona Charger EV thing was a phenomenal way to exit a upside down car and still end up with a lower payment and on a short-term lease, get yourself out from underneath that negative equity in a short period of time. And I said this before, anyone was talking about this. That's not a brag or flex. It's that I wasn't 100% sure that it was going to be something that could be done because I couldn't find those good lease deals in California, but they exist everywhere else. And I saw this post just a couple of days ago, maybe it was yesterday, that showed a gentleman actually getting out from underneath a massive amount of negative equity and doing a lease on a Charger Daytona EV. And while he may spend a lot of time on the side of the road and on the back of tow trucks, he is going to be completely debt-free from his prior upside-down vehicle upon the termination and end of the lease on this Dodge Charger. So that, for him, is a humongous win. Now, here's what happens. Because he rolled the negative equity in, there is some question about if he has to lemon law that Dodge Charger, if the MSRP is $82,000 and they end up selling it to him instead of for $62,000 for $82,000 to cover that negative equity, when it comes time to lemon law that car, the big question I would say is, well, could he get all that money back? Well, with lemon laws, oftentimes that's the lawyer's objective, is to get all of the money back. So if you bought one of those things, here's a little twist, end up having to lemon law that Dodge Charger, and you rolled $20,000, $30,000 negative into that thing, or just $10,000 negative into that thing, I believe there's a chance you get a good enough attorney, if that thing keeps breaking on you, and getting stuck at charging stations, unwilling to take a charge, that you may find, or not able to get parts, you may find yourself in a place to where you can lemon law that sucker and wipe out all your debt. So I'm thinking we found a vehicle that if you can get it leased cheap enough and then put the negative on, that you might be able to find an escape hatch to get out from underneath this thing. So with that, everybody, feel free to email me, ocmotivator@gmail.com. I will give you some direction if you're in one of these positions with these delinquent loans and you're panicked and scared, and I'll help you make a good decision. And I won't go straight to bankruptcy. I'll try to help you find a better way. But if there is no better way, I will help you see light at the end of the tunnel. So with that, please like, subscribe, comment, and go ahead and bash me, as you usually do in the comments, for all of you self-righteous, brilliant geniuses that never make mistakes in your life. God bless you and everyone else. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.